Thank you, everyone, for joining me for these live internet studies. My name is Ariel, ben-Lyman, HaNaviy. This is an hour-and-a-half long study. There are two segments to each hour-and-a-half long show. The first segment is 1 hour long. It's entitled Eschatology, Biblical Study of End-Time Events. We're studying through topics such as Rapture, Book of Revelation, things like that. So if you're interested, then just stick around. The last 30 minutes is entitled A Trinitarian Response to Biblical Unitarianism, and it's an apologetic look at verses in the Bible that are traditionally interpreted in a Trinitarian fashion, but are being challenged by a non-Trinitarian denomination known as Biblical Unitarianism. So if you're interested in topics such as that, stick around for the last 30-minute show. All right, just real quick before I even get started, by way of schedule, if I look up my calendar, Yom Kippur happens at the end of next week, October 11th going into the 12th. So Erev Yom Kippur is sundown on October 11th, and the October 12th, which is a Saturday, all day is Yom Kippur. So no Torah study for those of you who join me live each week in Skype. No Torah study that time, and so I'll probably just have a repeat show that'll air, or no show at all, or something like that. But we won't meet again until the 19th, which is the Saturday following. So just a reminder, all right? Okay, let's look at my time. We're looking good. Okay, let's jump into the first study here, which is Eschatology, Biblical Study of End-Time Events. This is the topical index pulled up that we've been working from. There's 18 weeks that I've imagined that the study might go. This is subject to change, but so far I haven't changed it in quite a while. Looks like for over a year. So we're in topic 11, that yellow part, making a case for the pre-wrath view. So we're talking about rapture views. There's this slide that I'll show you in post-production. I don't have it pulled up in front of me right now. Well, I suppose I could pull it up. I don't know. There's no reason not to have it. Give me a moment. Yeah, let's just open up this for a second. So these are the four rapture views that I'm kind of working from. This first rapture view is the, pull out my little pointer tool again, is the Prewrath Rapture view. It simply puts a 7-year time period in view. We call this 7-year time period the 7-year tribulation. If you're a pre-tribulationist, you call it the 7-year time period. And the description, like you can read it right here on the screen, is Pretribulation Rapturists believe the church will be raptured before this final 7-year period known as Daniel's 70th week. So that's their perspective. The second view, which is right here, mid-tribulation rapture view, their description says that mid-tribulation rapturists believe the rapture will occur exactly halfway through the 7-year period. So they're still calling the whole time period the 7-year tribulation, and therefore the rapture happens halfway through the 7-year tribulation, just before the beginning of the Great Tribulation. So the theology of keeping the church out of the Great Tribulation still remains. It's similar to the pre-tribulation rapture view as well. Neither one of those views wants to put the church into the Great Tribulation. However, with the bottom two views, we start seeing a few things different. In the lower left corner, we have what's called the post-tribulation rapture. And the description reads, post-tribulation rapturists believe the rapture will occur following the 7-year period known as Daniel's 70th week. And so the entire 7-year period might be called the 7-year tribulation, according to this chart. It might not be. This chart doesn't say it that way because this is a non-pretrib chart put out by non-pretribbers. But either way, the church appears to go through, this is classic post-trib, appears to go through the entire tribulation period, including tribulation and great tribulation and all of God's wrath, and is only raptured, like you can see here on the screen, is only raptured at the very end, where a rapture and a resurrection and a second coming, so-called, are all kind of conflated together. They're all combined. They're all on top of one another. That is the perspective that we're looking at there. The final view on the lower right corner, pre-wrath rapture, which is the view I'm going to elaborate more on in the study. That's the view I hold to. This view has this description. Pre-wrath rapturists believe the rapture will occur following the opening of the sixth seal of the book of Revelation. The church will experience severe persecution by the Antichrist, but will be snatched away before God begins to pour out his wrath during the day of the Lord. So some of the significant details of the pre-wrath rapture are that the church goes through the tribulation, just like Posttrib says, but the church is rescued from the day of the Lord, unlike the Posttribbers say. So it's got its unique details. Again, not everyone holds to this view, but I'm trying to convince you of that as we go along. Where are we right now? What I created is this. Let me just scroll back up the top so you can see it. I created this short little dialogue between myself and Dr. Michael Brown, who's a prominent post-tribber. And what I did is Dr. Michael Brown and Pastor Derek Walker had a YouTube debate some time back, and it's available on YouTube. Obviously, you can just Google search either Brown versus Walker rapture debate or pre-trib versus post-trib rapture debate and look for the thumbnails, something like that. What I did is I made this transcript using Dr. Brown's opening statement or what is his opening remarks, where in a debate usually you get one opponent to say what they believe and they talk for like 10 or 15 or 20 minutes, and then the other person talks for the same amount of time and explains what they believe. I took Dr. Brown's opening and I transcribed it, part of it, and then I took the liberty of taking my own comments to interact with Dr. Brown. I wasn't there at the debate, obviously, and Dr. Brown wasn't debating me, and I don't care to debate him on this topic. But I've done this for the sake of allowing my viewers to see the way that I, as a pre-wrather, interact with a prominent, well-respected, trusted post-tribber on this particular topic of the rapture timing. So I call this Posttrib Prewrath Rapture Smackdown. It's part 1. There's a part 2 that we'll deal with after we come back from the Yom Kippur break. So in 2 weeks, we'll do part 2. I think I'm going to finish part 1 tonight. Hint, whoever wins between Posttrib and Prewrath, whoever wins, Pretrib loses. Mwah! Right, my little evil laugh there, LOL. So what we did is we've been working our way down through this, and I simply numbered them for ease of following along. Dr. Brown is the numbered parts, and then the HaNaviy is the gray part, the highlighted part in gray. So we made it down to number 12, and then we stopped at 12. So let me just jump let me start back at number 11, just so you can get the kind of the running sense of where I've been going, and then I'll just keep going. Dr. Brown says, remarkably, we just heard that these two are speaking of two completely separate events, the rapture and the second coming. By context, he's talking about verses in the book of Matthew, and he's talking about how that we're breaking into context. This is why I have to say this. Let me jump over to Matthew so you can see this. In the book of Matthew, we have a description of Jesus coming and the gathering. So chapter 24, verse 30 and 31, the sign of the Son of Man appearing in the sky, the Son of Man coming on the clouds. And then verse 31, the gathering of the elect. This language, according to post-tribbers and pre-wrathers, this language is rapture language. Dr. Brown agrees that this is rapture language, and so do we pre-wrathers. We agree that this is rapture language. However, pre-tribbers don't want to put the church into the 70th week of Daniel, the 7-year time period. They don't want to put the church in there because in their dispensational hermeneutic theological way of dividing the Bible up, the church and Israel are two separate dispensations. And thus, the 70th week of Daniel, just like all of the other weeks of Daniel, just like all the other 69 weeks, those weeks are for Israel. And thus, the church is a parenthesis in the dispensational mind frame of God in the time frame of God, the mindset of God, the church is a different dispensation, and thus the church must be raptured prior to the 70th week of Daniel commencing. This is one of the strong reasons why pre-tribulation rapturists place the rapture prior to the 7-year tribulation, and they place the second coming after the 7-year tribulation's run its course. So when they read Matthew 24, verse 30 and 31, they don't see a rapture, because that would be for the church. Instead, what do they make of this gathering and this coming of the Lord? They say that this is the second coming for Israel. However, as pre-tribbers keep reading down through Matthew, when they get down into starting to verse 32, and Jesus gives the parable of the fig tree, saying that this is going to take place soon. And then in starting in verse 36, he says, "But about that day and hour no one knows, not even the angels of heaven, nor the Son, but the Father alone." And then he talks about how the coming of the Son of Man will be like the days of Noah, taken and left language, be on the alert because you don't know the day in which your Lord is coming and all of that. This thief in the night language and such, all of that. So starting in verse 36, essentially, and moving down to the end of the chapter, according to those same pre-tribbers who said that earlier, that verse 30 and 31 was the rapture, but when they drop down to verse 36, they say that earlier they said that that was the second coming. They say that this, starting in verse 36, is now the rapture, because it's talking about the day and the hour that no one knows. It's talking about the thief coming, Jesus coming like a thief in the night, all this stuff. That to them is clearly second coming clearly rapture language. I'm sorry, I keep confusing. So the point is they get them out of order. They put the earlier part sequentially, they put the earlier part of Matthew as speaking about the later event in the week, and then the later part of Matthew is speaking about the earlier event. And so this is where we jump into my study where Dr. Brown's saying, what in the world are you guys doing with scripture? That's confusing. And then, so he's like, remarkably, we just heard that these two are speaking of two completely separate events, meaning rapture is one event, second coming is a separate event. I think you already know, and if you don't know, you have to look at the slide I just showed you, that according to this slide, rapture is one event on this side of the screen. Give me a second. Let me move this guy up or down. He's in my way. There we go. Oh, I don't need to see it at all. Let's try this again. So rapture, well, that's too much. This is the pre-tribulation rapture that I'm kind of focusing on. Rapture is right here at the beginning of the 70th week, beginning of the 7 years. But second coming is over here on the far right side. So the separation between these two events is the full 7 years, separate events. Post-trib, if you notice by comparison, combines all of the events. They conflate them. They put them all together. A second coming and rapture are both right here in the same spot. So Dr. Brown's saying it's absurd to think that Jesus is speaking of two separate events. Only the other three separate them, right? Pretrib has two different events. One here, lost my little pointer. One here. Mid-trib has one event here and one event here. And even pre-wrathers have one event here and then another event at the very end. So either way, it's only the classic post-tribbers who conflate and put both of them together in that one spot. So going back to what Dr. Brown is objecting to, he said, we heard that both of these are two separate events, the rapture and the second coming. And what I responded last time is that pre-wrathers say, boo, hiss, laugh out loud. Hey, post-tribbers, don't get pre-wrath confused with pre-trib. While pre-wrathers do think that the dispensational version of pre-trib interpretations of the timing of these two events is woefully inadequate, by pre-wrath reckoning, the rapture and second coming are indeed two separate events, but they're inseparably connected to the single event known as the parousia, with a minimum duration of at least 5 months between them, per Revelation 9, verse 5. And so I believe that we're talking about two events that are connected to the one event known as the day of the Lord. If we were to look at this slide we could see this single event here is the day of the Lord right there. The God's wrath is the day of the Lord. The front end the bookend on the front is the rapture, and the bookend on the end is the what we call second coming. All right, which I mentioned that the word second coming doesn't actually show up in the Bible, but there is a verse that I was looking at a passage this week that I'll show you later on that shows up in the book of Hebrews that is very surprisingly close to saying the word second coming. It says appeared a second time, which is really kind of close to what I think we're referring to. In fact, I'm quite certain it is. All right, let's keep going. So I think that there are two events, but there's really one event, but two events. And you're thinking, well, Ariel, that's equivocal. All right, yeah, you're right. One event, two events. It's one major event when you zoom out, but when you zoom in, you can see the details of the front end of the event and the back end of the event. That's why I say two events, two details connected to the one event, if you want to think of it like that. Let's keep going. So then after that, I read number 12 last week. This is where we stopped. Yet Jesus uses the exact same words in the exact same context to describe these two events. Yes, he uses the word coming in book of Matthew. In fact, we saw that up in verse 30 itself. He says, then you'll see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of the sky. And I believe that is the parousia there. Let me just double check. Open up some Greek real quick. Interlinear should work for me, so you guys can both see what I'm talking about. And then will appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then will mourn all the tribes of the earth, and they will see the Son of Man coming. Nope, this isn't the same. This isn't parousias. This is our comment on. This is a movement word. This is a word used to describe the actual movement of point A to point B. This isn't the other word that we're used to seeing. This word right here is a different word or comment on. But nevertheless, it is a word used, let's see, it's a word that is used to describe the second coming of Messiah. But when earlier up when the disciples asked, Lord, what will be the sign of your coming right here, then it's not the same word or comment on there. In Matthew 3, I pull that one up just real quick for you. Didn't have these open earlier, so I apologize. I didn't know I was going to go in this direction. When we look at here, when the disciples ask, when will these things happen? What will be the sign of your coming? We can see here, it's the Greek word parousias, which is rooted in our Greek word parousia, which is the word we've been kind of highlighting for so often, the parousia. What will be the sign of your? But notice the translation is coming. And so that's where it gets a little challenging. We have coming here in verse 3, excuse me. And then later on, I think he mentions coming again. I suppose I could go like, yeah. He mentions it here in verse 3, and then in verse 27, so will the coming of the Son of Man be. I think this on verse 27, let me just look. If I look at, I think I'll go like this time, Greek. For just as the lightning comes there from the east and flashes as far as the west, so will be the coming right here. Yeah, the parousias. Notice you can see it's translated in English as coming, but the Greek here, the parousia, again, so will be the parousia, the coming of the Lord. So we have it there. And then in verse 30, it says coming, but even though the English says coming, the Greek is a different word, it's our comment on. But then when we get down into verse 37, for the coming of the Son of Man, but let's see what it is in the Greek. So we pull up the Greek. Let's pull the interlinear this time. As were the days of Noah, so will the parousia, the coming, right? The coming, the parousia, oops, didn't mean to do that. The parousia, you can just see it right there. It's hard to highlight just that one. There we go. The parousia. So notice what's happening is in the English, we have different words for coming. Two different words at least. We have parousia and we have our comment on. For the coming of the Son of Man will be just like the days of Noah. Then down at the bottom, and they did not understand until the flood took them all away. So will the coming of the Son of Man be. What word is it in verse 39? Let's just take a look. Pull up the interlinear one more time. And they knew it not until the flood came and took them all away. Thus will also you see it, the parousia, the coming of the Lord be. So we have parousia showing up there, and then therefore be on alert. You don't know in which the day in which your Lord is coming. Let's see verse 42. Pull up the interlinear again. Keep watch, therefore, you know not on which the day of the Lord comes. Okay, erkatai. This is different. I figured it would be. The translation from the NASB just says coming, but that's not what it is in the Greek. If they knew the time the thief was coming, I'm pretty sure that's not parousias. For this reason, it must be reserved, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour. Well, it would probably be best if I just did both of them, or all of them, since I'm there anyway. Let me just go here and go, I think I'll do something different. I'll go like this for a second. This way I don't have to keep jumping back and forth. I just pull up the Greek on the left side all together. Then I can just I can see coming here, and I can see, let's see, I can just use my knowledge of Greek here and just show you it's parousias right there. All right. So let me jump down to, what was it, verse 40, 39, the coming of the Son of Man, 42. You don't know in the day in which your Lord is coming. Here it's erkatai, so it's not parousias. But be sure of this, if they knew that the head of the house had known at what time the night the thief was coming, it's right here, erkatai, so it's not parousias. And then for this reason, you must also be ready, for the Son of Man is coming. It's down here, erkatai, it's not parousias. And then, but if that evil slave says in his heart, my master is not coming, inde epitahai dulas ekenas ete kardi autu kanadse mu hakurias. Oh, my Lord is not, this one doesn't even have the erkatai. My Lord, it doesn't say coming at all, it just says my Lord delays. My master is not coming, my Lord delays is what it says. And that's the end of the words coming in this particular chapter. There's no more. Then we jump back up to verse 3 again. So the point is, going back to Dr. Brown, didn't mean to take too long on that. The point is, going back, is that Dr. Brown says Jesus used the exact same words in the exact same context to describe the rapture coming and the second coming, right? He uses similar language to describe what Dr. Brown thinks is the singular event known as rapture and second coming. And so I say amen like post-tribbers, and to the dismay of pretribbers, we pre-wrathers agree that Matthew 24 is a description of the rapture and not the second coming. But unlike post-tribbers, we pre-wrathers do not conflate Jesus' words here as if they are teaching both rapture and second coming as one combined event. Pre-wrathers tend to think that post-tribbers are reading into the text at this point, especially since the book of Revelation gives adequate enough evidence to believe in a single significant parousia event with two bookends that are separated by the day of the Lord itself. And I read that really fast because I already read it last week. So now let's get into the rest of this, and I think I'm going to try and finish this tonight. Let's pick up Dr. Brown's words.